right, welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Please silence all cell phones and note that this meeting is being taped by FCTV. If there's any private party recording this hearing, please step up to the podium to request permission. I'll introduce the board and staff. On my far right is Mark Finneran, a voting member. Right to my closest right is Frank Duffy, the clerk. I'm Suzanne Murphy, chair. To my left is James Morse, vice chair. To his left is Tony Bertucci, associate, and then Nick Haney. We have Noreen Stockman, zoning administrator, and Ashley DeMello, office assistant. The Zoning Board of Appeals is charged with applying the state zoning statutes as well as the town's bylaws and reviewing and voting on any application. All decisions are made through the public hearing process. Our goal is to hear testimony from the applicants and the public and to allow a full and fair discussion of the project prior to closing the hearing process and reaching a decision. Number one, to begin each hearing, the clerk will read the public announcement for the hearing and read pertinent information from the file. 2, the applicant or applicant's representative will then have 15 minutes to make a presentation, but time may be extended by a vote of the board. 3, the board will then question the applicant. 4, next, the public will be invited to comment. Comment should be limited to 2 minutes and be strictly related to the proposal. All members of the public wishing to speak should wait to be recognized by the chair and should come to the podium. You state your name and address for the record. Please speak into the mic and it will amplify your voice and record audio for FC TV viewers. And we also have a time if anyone needs to speak for a public statement, but not pertaining to the hearing that we're having tonight. Anybody want to come up to the podium? So we're all set. So tonight we have a continued hearing, 85 Brick Kiln Road, LLC. Welcome.
Good evening. Nick Marioni here representing the applicant. Where we stood last time, I believe, we were making some changes to the plan that were in relation to comments that have been made by the board and the public. And we also needed to come in with a landscape and buffering plan, which we've submitted to the board, but I'll put it up in a minute for us to look at and discuss. Actually, I'm going to do that right now.
These were submitted pretty late, huh, Nick?
Yeah, well, sorry about that, but I was gathering information, and then I had to get the landscape architect to do this. So we moved the dumpsters up to this location here, and we took the garage that was there and attached it to this garage. We're making this a 2-bay garage, even though it's the size of a 5. We're only putting 2 doors on it. One bay is going to be used for bicycle storage for the residents. The rest of the garage will be used for the owner's maintenance equipment and supplies for the project. Mailbox remains where it was. The buffering is along the entry road. We've got a 6-foot of fence mixed in with some green giant arborvitae, the same thing along the detention pond. And behind each unit from 4 to 9, we put 2 8-foot sections, 16 feet behind each patio near the property line, and filled in between with green giant arborvitae. And that's behind all these buildings. These have enough buffering in them already, so we didn't do any buffering back here. We took the trees out of the detention pond, and we addressed, in our opinion, you'll get confirmation on that, I hope, that we addressed the peer review comments that were outstanding. There were some adjustments to the stormwater report and another perk test that they wanted. So I think we've addressed everything that was outstanding at this point. One other thing, I also met with Amy Lowell on this, and there's no immediate plan to sewer this area.
And that's all she said to you?
Well, no, we discussed a lot of other things, too, but for this, as far as this area goes, at this point, they're working on Phase 1 and Phase 2 of their sewer plan, which, although it has a force main that goes by this property, there's no capacity to connect to it and no plan or financing or funding for it that's imminent or even on the planning table at this time. So in other words, we don't have sewer for this project.
Is the septic that you have that you're putting in going to be adaptable? If the Board of Health does make you
Yes.
upgrade? Okay.
Yes.
All right, has everybody had a chance to look at the landscape plan we just got?
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Tony.
I just want a clarification. On the retention pond, I think you said there were western red cedars, and I think they're not a big deal. They're white pines, not western red cedars.
No, they're
According to this,
I thought we put in,
you did, but not there. I just wanted the clarification. I don't care.
we're showing PG2s there.
It's a PS, you have 7 PS. It says
White
white
pi-
white pine.
White pines.
That's all. I
White-
just
yeah.
wanted to clarify that.
Okay, sorry.
That's all.
Yeah.
Anything else, Tony?
Not on the landscape plan, but others.
Okay, Jimmy, anything on the landscape?
Not on landscape, I do have other questions, but I'll address them later.
I have a couple. Why are there two bay garages?
Well,
What's the little one for?
either for the owner's maintenance, or we may need it for storage for the residents.
It's going to be 4 bays if you include,
The big garage is the size of a 5-bay garage. The owner is
it's going
going
to
to
be
use,
7-bay garage.
there's 7
total.
bays of garages on this shown.
And no vehicles from the residents are going to be in them.
No.
Okay.
How much equipment do you anticipate having to store?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
How much equipment do you anticipate having to store?
Well, he's got a Bobcat, he's got the plow, he's got lawn cutting equipment, he does all his own maintenance. We're also going to store extra screens, extra smoke detectors, all the things that if you have to buy one, they get expensive, so it's always nice to have a shelf with all the stuff you're going to need. So,
Would it make more sense to just put the smaller building for the storage of bicycles for the residents and not have people, your residents trancing through his storage area with his other equipment and things?
well, the garage would be separated. The one, I think I gave an elevation also. The one door, we haven't decided yet how, we've been talking about it, we haven't figured out yet how we're going to make it secure, where the residents will have access to it, but no one else will. Whether we use a fob, we give them a master key. We'll have cameras there for security. But the access, the point of the whole thing is to get a place where they can store their bicycles and other bigger equipment that they don't want to either put in their cellar or they don't have a place to put in their unit.
So a Bobcat, a lawnmower, what else?
Plows.
Okay, you're only going to need one for this property. What else? This is 7 bays. That's a lot of
Well,
building.
he's using 4 of them. He's
What?
going to use 4 of the bays.
Okay.
Storage and equipment. Storage of materials for the project and equipment.
And so the little 2-bay one, they're not going near. That's residents only.
Possibly, yeah. We don't know. We don't have a use for it yet. We have the space we wanted to put it in. It's like having another storage shed there.
Okay. Frank, anything?
Well, yeah, you moved the dumpster, you had it on the entrance road, and suddenly it's appeared in the middle of the residential buildings, which to me doesn't seem to make any sense. So why did you move it?
We moved it because the residents requested we move it, and we were trying to accommodate the concerns of the neighborhood.
Yeah,
Well,
one of the abutters brought that up.
I know, one of the abutters brought it up, but you've got the dumpster right in the middle of the residential section of the project. That means the truck has to go in among the residences to pick up and, so forth. It seems to me, just me now, that a more sensible place to put it would be on the entrance road, so it doesn't have to go into the project.
I thought so, too. I still think so.
Well, I mean, we had one gentleman who said that he was concerned about coyotes, I think, and while that's a legitimate concern, you're going to have coyotes wherever the dumpster is. So moving it doesn't solve the problem. And you've got it in the middle of the residential area. I personally don't like it. And then you've got the, it was just brought up earlier that you've got possible bicycle storage down off the entrance road, where maybe that might have been more sensibly put in the middle of the project where people actually live. Just my thoughts.
A very good one. I'm willing to make that change, but just, I don't want to get in a battle over.
Well, I don't want to get in a battle over it either, but I wondered why it was changed suddenly, because I only heard one person talk about it. And if just one person talks about it, that doesn't make it an action item.
Well, if the board wishes and want to make that a condition, we'll switch them back. I mean, I think the residents should have their say, also to give you their point of view.
They do,
which they will.
and
Yeah.
they've got a lot of important things
Yeah.
to say, but not everything rises to the level of an action item. That's just all I want
agree.
to say.
Mark, do you have anything? Did you have a chance to?
Yeah, not enough, but for starters, this oversized garage, how much does that increase the lot coverage?
Didn't change it at all. We had,
Change it at all? How could that be?
well, because we had a
We didn't
two-car,
have 7 bays.
we had a two-car here, we had a two-car here, and a three-car here. We now have the same 7 bays that we had before.
And I'm sorry, we've had so many of these, and to be honest with you, a lot of these lately that you've submitted appear to be carbon copies of one another. You're going to have to refresh my memory. The garages that you took away, were some of those for the residents, and now they're for storage of plows and equipment and such?
No, some are for the storage by the owner for his equipment and additional
Like
materials.
the owner's getting more storage here than the originally intended for the tenants.
I don't know that I agree with that, but we had,
Well, the
at
numbers,
one
I
point,
mean, the numbers, the square footage, the number of bays have, I don't know. Now, the last time you were here, didn't you represent to us that you were going to store equipment for other projects here? Was that not what you stated?
for the owner's projects in the area, yes. He owns a lot of apartments within a couple-mile area of this. Along Route 28, he owns the ones across from Kenyon's. He's got 10 units there, and he's got no place to put all the extra material.
So you're going
units.
to burden these people with other for-profit?
I'm not sure
It's
it
like you're
burdens them,
cutting
but
corners and cutting lawns at the same time and changing your business model. I don't know. Now, these arborvitae's here behind the patios, they're right on the property line?
2 foot inside the property line or 2
A
feet?
foot?
Inside they're on our property.
A foot inside?
They're on our property.
Now?
No, they're not there yet.
No, but when they are, they're going to grow like madness. So they certainly are going to encroach on,
What are you suggesting? What's your,
well, I'm suggesting to you that arborvitae's can grow a foot from the property line. That's enough for now. I'm just Whatever. I'm sure I'll have something later.
Follow-up, please?
Go ahead.
Just on Mr. Finneran's question about the garage and storage. At one point in time, in the beginning, it was about the bikes going into the basements, and now they're going to have a garage put it in. When you measured out the space, put those bikes in, are you assuming that everybody has two bikes, one bike, and that they can all fit there, or it's going to be a garage and first come, first served type of thing?
Well, first of all, we're assuming that the studio buildings are the ones that are going to use it for the bicycles. We're also assuming that the other units, which have basements, will use their basements.
All right, so 12 bikes, basically.
Then we're saying that there's enough room in there, we think, for 30 bicycles with
Yeah, okay. That's
places
fine.
to lock them.
And that's great. With regard to structure, percentage of structure on that, I guess the easiest way to resolve that and any concern about that is just for you to restate it in some document to the ZBA, that it's still at 44, whatever it is, 43 or 44%. That it hasn't changed. That just that it hasn't changed and it remains
Yes.
at whatever it is, 43.4 or 44, I forget what I read.
What we're asking for a waiver for.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right,
I guess that's the easiest way to solve that situation.
okay.
And I'm sure one more question. I forgot to ask. It says on the landscape plan, existing trees to remain, and has an arrow, and of course, there's a lot of green. Are you talking about existing trees that are going to stay just where that arrow is, or the entire perimeter of the property?
Well, anything that's on the perimeter will stay that is not dead or doesn't have to come down. What we do, and I'm going to use an example of a different project that we did today. We marked out on Acapesket the limit of clearing so that the peer review can come over and say, okay, you're not cutting anything you shouldn't have to cut, and just establish that. With that, now we can set our siltation fence. Once that's inspected, we can set our erosion control, and as soon as we get the construction general permit, we put up our sign with the numbers, appropriate numbers, and we're cleared to go.
I just want
We
to
do
get
the
that.
same thing here.
I just want to get that on the record. So pretty much that any tree that's going to remain along the perimeter, that's going to remain, wherever the excavation is, you're not going to be excavating under the drip edge of an existing tree that could kill the roots of an existing tree. So where you set your siltation line, and maybe this is something for the engineer to talk about, wherever you set your line, it is to protect the existing trees by not digging up the roots of the trees that exist. So that means you can't go into the drip line. I think. I could be wrong.
It's hard to tell where the roots come out, but the goal is not to damage trees on someone else's property.
Okay, I'm just stating that usually if you go into the drip line, you're going to damage the roots. I just wanted to get that on the record, that you're going to save those trees as best possible.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Frank, you want to ask yours now?
Yes, I have another question, not necessarily a landscaping question, but because you have the plan up here, it's probably appropriate to ask it now. I read somewhere that the fire department had requested another hydrant, but it didn't say where it should go. Can you show us on your plan where the hydrants are located and how many you have?
They're not shown on the landscape plan. Did they say they wanted one? Oh, we just pointed out on this one, or, the area?
It's right up here.
Oh, it's right in this area here. And there's one directly across the street from the entrance also.
Well, I have notes in among my notes that the fire department requested another hydrant. So did you add another hydrant to this plan at all, or did you not get the memo?
I don't think we got the memo. We certainly have no problem adding another hydrant if they want one, but we would have.
Well,
I don't remember seeing the memo
I'm not telling you
on
where to
this.
put one, because I don't know, but if the fire department wants one, I think you should accommodate them.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you sure you're not thinking of a different project?
I read it today in my notes, and this was the
Okay,
file I
on
had
this
on my
one.
desk
All right,
this
fine.
morning, so
Because it did come up on another project, and we did
they've
move
moved
the
up on
hydrant.
others too, yeah. Okay.
You want stuff, go ahead.
I have a problem with all these garages,
All the what? sir?
all the garages. I mean, this is a 40B. You're looking for a waiver for lot coverage, and we give such waivers because you're addressing an affordable housing issue. But what we're doing here is we're making it more affordable for the owner to store his equipment for, by your own statements, other projects he owns throughout the town. And I think that is asking us more than we're able to give. I mean, this extra lot coverage isn't, this waiver isn't for affordable housing. This waiver is to make the owner's storage of his equipment more affordable. And I think we might consider drawing a line somewhere there. I mean, I'm sorry, Nick, but you said to us earlier that you need this garage space to store smoke alarms. I mean, that borders on preposterous.
Well, it's not just smoke alarms. It's
Oh, yeah.
stuff that we buy all the time that we're, I think you're making a joke out of something that's
I'm not
serious.
making a joke.
That we store screens.
There's no jokes
All right,
here.
but
We're serious people. I mean,
We
I
stock
work all
screens.
day long, and then I rush to come here, and then this is no joke. So,
There's
just,
more than smoke detector. As an example, there's screens, there's light fixtures, there's door hardware, there's all kinds of things that get,
cats, lawnmowers, plows for other projects.
well, we'll plow this project as well. All right. I hear what you're saying. But there's a lot of stuff that we
Nick,
store.
You're pushing the envelope here.
It's-
Maybe others don't agree with me, but I think that's correct.
I agree, it's abuse of density, that's what it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
That's a nice term.
Anybody else have any other questions? Nick, do you have anything?
Can you look that up for me, Craig?
Madam Chair, I have questions, but not about this.
Do you want to go first, or? Go
Whatever
ahead.
you,
Go ahead.
I got several questions.
Go for it.
Okay. I just want to get it appears that I think that legally we're supposed to close this on or around the 7th of January. So that's right around the corner. So I just want to get a couple things on the record if I can. You know, these types of projects have many changes, as we know, and I spent probably an hour and a half today just trying to collate in my office what plans actually related to tonight's hearing. Do you maintain a plan list listing each and every plan and their dates and revisions so that the board has something for its records, so that we know that, for instance, everything I've got in my hands here and in the booklet is exactly what the board is supposed to be either approving or not approving, whatever the case may be? Do you keep a plan list with all the?
We do, and so does Noreen. It ends up in the comp permit with the plans that were submitted and the ones that were approved.
All right, so the office has a plan list that's current. Okay, that's all I care about. With regard to snow storage, just a quick question on that. When you look at you're going to be depending on the snow that you store to melt by the weather versus taking it off-site, am I correct? So in other words, you're going to pile it up in these areas that shows on the snow plan, and then you're going to depend, the weather will melt that snow, and it'll go into the retention pond or wherever it's going to go, versus taking it off. So the question, I talked to a commercial snow removal company the other day about how do they plan to store snow. And one of the plans is you got to put the snow you store by the storm drains in order to make sure that that runoff goes where it's supposed to go. And sometimes I think I can read plans, but then sometimes when they're this small, it's hard to read them. So when you're storing snow all the way at the back of this project or in the center aisle area, and you're depending on it to melt versus take off, where is all of that runoff going to go? It can't go on the ground, it's paved. Is it just going to run down the street to the 2 storm drains at the entrance area? Is it going to run into the street? Is that yes?
It's intended to either leach into the ground or run to the, just like any other drainage, run to the catch basins and into the detention pond.
And I'm asking the question because, not because I'm an engineer, because I'm not, because it's come up several times from abutters about their concerns about the water. So the idea is that wherever the snow is put within this plan that you presented, you're going to depend on it to melt versus taking off. I know at some point in time, if we're a really bad snowstorm, you'd have to take it off. And that'll go down to those drains down at the beginning, going to go into the retention pond. Some of it might escape and go down to the town's, I think I have a plan here, the town has something down at the end on Brick Hill as well. And I'm going to get to that in a second. So that's what the testimony is, that it's all going to go into those storm drains. So that's covered. There were some concerns about the Sophie Lane drainage pickup, if I'm correct, and tell me if I am or I'm not. I think that the Garys, in an email of 12/9, brought it up, asking about, just remind me, if you could, remind us, not me, but remind the board, about drainage on Brick Hill and where that water from Sophie is being picked up, as I think it was suggested. Has that been covered?
Well, I'll let Tim answer that. I think it was more confusion than anything.
I know, I'm confused.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
For the record, Tim Santos from Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors, representing the applicant. If you hold on for 1 second, I'm just trying to find the most recent site plans. I think, no, that's next. Nick, do you have the most recent ones on here?
Yeah.
I just can't find it.
By date, plan set 9/20, is that the one?
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's it, it's got this on it, right? Is that the right one?
I'm not sure.
So my question has to do with the runoff from Sophie Lane.
Yeah, if you hold on 1 second, I'm just
Oh, sure.
trying to get back up. So this is probably the best one to use. So I think a question came up last time about the runoff from Sophie Lane, and basically what I was trying to state was we're responsible to capture any runoff that comes onto our site. So these 3 houses here, I think this is 27, 33, and 37. There's a high point within their backyard that drains onto our property. So we're capturing the runoff from the backyards of these properties. It's included within our watershed areas. All right. Sophie Lane itself, I believe there's probably a high point somewhere around here, and it drains to the north. The remainder of the road and the properties drain down to the south, and I believe there's a set of catch basins in front of this home, and it comes to I think what it does is it comes to a low point in this here. If you look at these grading on this property, this is a low point where that road comes to. We are not responsible to capture the road drainage runoff from Sophie Lane.
Now, if you don't mind, there's a swale on Sophie Lane that's actually in the middle of the street. Can you point that out on this map?
I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure.
It's further that way.
It's probably to the
And then when you
north.
drive down through that, it appears that it flows off towards the east.
Like back in here is what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't know if it's there. I think it's a little closer than that.
Because
I'm not
if you
sure
look
what
at
you're
the-
representing to us is actually
If you look at
correct.
the town GIS maps, the high point is somewhere in this
I'm
area.
talking about the low point, I'm not talking
Okay.
about the high point.
Well, the low
In
point is
the
down.
middle of Sophie Lane, there's a problem area. The pavement's never, maybe one of the people here can point that out
So
better than
there's
you
a
can.
low point here at the intersection of Sophie and, I'm not sure of the name of the road back here.
No, that's
And then
not
there's
what
a-
I'm
then-
talking about.
You're talking about the low point in front of this home here. Okay, there is, if you look on the town maps, there is a drainage easement. So I'm assuming
And that comes right
that
down.
comes into this low point here. Okay, this is contour 40, 38, 36, 34, 32. So at one point in time, the town got a drainage easement, I believe this is 97 Brick Kiln, over this property here to discharge the runoff from Sophie Lane. So in this low point here is where it's collected. It does not drain onto our property.
So the concerns of the abutters should not be concerned, is that what you're saying?
So we're collecting the runoff from the high points of the properties behind us, like we're supposed to. For us to take the runoff from Sophie Lane and deal with that, I do not believe the applicant's responsible for that. It's,
But are you stating to us that it,
the runoff from this road, the way it's shown on the town GIS with the grades and the drainage and the catch basins and the drainage easement on file, it comes to this low point here. I'm sorry, I just don't know what number this house is.
seems to me it would affect the overall, I mean, because it's just to the left of a swamp. I mean, I
This
know you've
this
done
comes
all the
uphill
numbers,
here,
but
so-
I honestly, I share the Gary's concerns.
I mean, we're collecting the entire runoff from our site and treating it. All of the runoff on our site will not be discharged onto the down gradient sites.
I mean, that's the key to it. You're collecting everything you need to collect.
Correct.
I don't want abutters being concerned about this. I want them to feel comfortable that what you folks have designed, you've engineered, you're professional, that it's not going to be an issue. Obviously, the abutters can come up and talk about this, and they've mentioned it in an email again. So I'm bringing it up, be on the record, that you've done everything you have to do per requirements to capture that water. Can I just want to go on, but I just want to go on to the next thing, unless there's more questions regarding that. I don't know. Anyway, may I just go on?
Go ahead,
Madam Chair?
Yep.
I just want to get into something that's always been of concern, certainly to this board member, and of course, it's nitrogen load. And I'm not sure exactly how to address this, but I'm not going to let it just go at this point in time. So we've established that, and I want this on the record, we've established this is in a coastal pond overlay district, and it's a nitrogen-sensitive area. We've established, I think, that Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the sewer system is simply going to go down as a forced, I think was defined as a forced main, I don't know if it's forced or not, and go right past the property. I think Mr. Mariani said that he cannot connect to it at this point in time, and probably for many years. The applicant has requested a waiver pursuant to Section 247.2 for the Coastal Pond Overlay District. We have not waived that, the board has not waived that at this point in time, and as a result, you produced a document that outlined the nitrogen effect on the property. It's not dated, but you know what it is, there's only one of them. And I was quoted in the newspaper as saying that I was confused. Well, yeah, I'm really, I am confused because it just states what you've established and the requirements, and again, if I'm wrong, somebody's going to tell me I'm wrong, and I hope they will before I go too far down the hole. 7.2B requires that any subdivision of 5 lots or more, or 5 acres, this is not 5 acres, it's not a true subdivision, but then we're splitting hairs because we've got 40-some odd units, I think it is. So it does fit into that category. It says that 7.2B2 must file an analysis of development impact as specific to 240.13.1D4, and it goes on. I think you filed the impact, but then it goes on, and again, someone stop me if I go too far here. And then it goes on, exemptions. The special permit granting authority, and this is not a special permit, may exempt an application, and you're asking for an exemption, from the requirement of 247 to provide the applicant demonstrate that, one, nutrients from the development will not in fact be discharged to the designated water body or public water supply well. You haven't done that, although I don't think it is going to that, but you haven't done that, and tell me if I'm wrong. The development will not result in any increase in loading of the relevant nutrient. You go from 0 to building these, so day one that you come live, you're now adding to it. Now, these bylaws can be very confusing, so I'm going to certainly be happy to be corrected. In addition to the exemptions found in 247.2B4A1, and goes on and on and on, any development that is in the recharge zone of a coastal pond proven to already exceed the limits, well, you're at 0 now, so you're going to go past that. So then you get into 13.1 recharge zone, 4A, B, C, D, so forth and so on, and it just requires more, it appears to require more than you provided this board. Certainly, I have no knowledge of what your test results provides this board. It just says you're going to create more nitrogen load. But it doesn't, so when we waive this, if we waive this, right, I don't think we know why we're waiving it. You haven't told us why we should waive it. And everything about it says we probably shouldn't waive it, and that you're going to have to prove that you're not adding more nitrogen to the coastal pond overlay district. And Madam Chair, through you to our zoning administrator, have I even come close to outlining that?
No, you're all right.
Okay.
You're right on the money.
You are on
Well,
the-
I just want to go on, if I could.
Yep.
Is it all right?
Yep.
So, let me go back to my notes if I can find them. I don't think you have shown this board why it should waive it, because on day one that you go live, you've added nitrogen to it. We have, we have some responses from town department heads. One is, I talked about it before, the sewer line you cannot connect to. The applicant has stated that they would comply, that you would comply with the Board of Health if they require you to put in IA systems. Is that correct, that you would comply if they asked you to install IA systems?
If it's a requirement, if it's a requirement that we have to comply with, we will, of course. And we know someday that's coming, whether it's from the
Pretty close.
DEP or from the town, yeah.
Just here.
So when that comes, we have to comply.
So if you're stating that you would comply, that means that you have set aside money and funds to do so. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
Well, how would you comply?
We can go borrow the money, I guess.
Well,
Go add it to the construction loan. This is a kind of a hypothetical, but what we had planned.
It's hypothetical because this town is very close to making some decisions about the installation of IA systems, and I think we learned from our zoning administrator that there've been some department head meetings where it indicates that very close. I don't know where they're going to say the first ones go in. Maybe you're going to be 5 years from now. None of us on this board knows. But the fact is they've asked you to put in room for the IA system, which means you have to be prepared to do that. And what you're telling this board right now is you may or may not have the money to do that.
I'm not telling the board that. You interrupted me before I finished answering your question. But I'll let you finish the
Yeah.
overview, and then I'll answer your question.
All right. So I guess that one of the other things that I think it might have been the head of the director of Board of Health. He had suggested at one point in time, I'm not sure to you, but I remember seeing something, read something that you might put up a escrow account for IA systems in the future that might have a 10-year sundown limit on it. So that's something I think needs to be considered, that if you're not going to put IA systems in now, we know you're going to affect the nitrogen load. You're not prepared to put IA systems in right now. You may or may not have the funds set aside, or you may have to borrow them to put IA systems in. But I think it has to be something that this board has to very strongly consider. Now, I have been advised by a very experienced administrator that we have to be, as a board, very consistent in what we do with regard to IA systems. And we can't tell you to put something in and tell somebody else to put something in. Now, one of the things, and I think that we are being consistent, because every project has to stand on its own. And every new unit that is added to this town in a coastal pond overlay district is accumulative to the nitrogen load in this town. So I think we are being consistent when we look at you one way and another project another way. For instance, on Zero Acapesket, it was, they didn't require an IA system because you're going to have, I think it's either phase 1 or phase 2, a sewer system going down Acapesket that you can actually tie into, and you're putting a sewer line in so you can do that. Here, you're not going to be able to do that. At 511, I think it's Brick Hill Road, they either volunteered or we required them to put it, I wasn't on the board then, IA systems, but we were closer to public water at that point in time. So I just want to establish for the record that we do look at these things very carefully. Each project has to be looked at for its own issues and concerns. And the fact that every unit that comes online in this town right now is adding a nitrogen load. So I just want to make sure that when my concern, and maybe other board members' concerns, are that you're adding nitrogen where you shouldn't be, that you're prepared to do something about mitigating that. And I don't think you've shown that in your report. I don't think you've complied with 7.2. I don't think you've complied with 13.1. And I wouldn't know, I wouldn't have a clue why this board would waive it, other than they would be afraid of an appeal. And I would not be afraid of an appeal when it comes to public health. I'm done. Thank
So what was
goodness,
the
huh? Thank
specific
He
question?
took a breath.
that you
Go for it, Nick.
What's the specific question? Why are we asking for the waiver?
Why are you, all right, primarily what I'm doing is putting on the record that you have not complied with asking us for a waiver of 7.2. All right, you've given us a report, but you've not complied with the rest of 7.2's requirements. And therefore, why should we give you that waiver? Why should we not compel you to put an IA system in?
And I mean, this problem exists, and it's growing, but, I mean, you also have to look at the fact that if this piece of land was used conventionally, I mean, how many units would we put in here? 2? I think it's sorry, I think it's too much.
Well,
I mean, we've just sewered the same area that this is going to contribute an abundance to. I mean, we have another project, which I can't speak of. I'm totally, extremely uncomfortable with this. I mean, there's no argument that can be made that this isn't going to have a dramatic and adverse effect.
Let's let Nick try to answer.
But I just wanted to kind of flush out.
just to answer the question, if you would, please, kindly, why we should waive it, 7.2, the Coastal Pond Overlay District, and why we shouldn't compel you, in whatever powers we have, to install IA systems in there, just for the record.
So we're asking for the waiver because we don't comply with the local bylaw. We do comply with the state at this point. We may not 6 years from now. As you know, they've issued guidelines that restrictions on the town that, I think a year ago, they gave you 7 years to do certain things, or they were going to require all these systems to become AI systems. So if that happened, we would have to comply with it because it would become a state bylaw. We're asking for the waiver because it makes this project uneconomic. It hurts the economy of the project to have to comply with the IA system. If we know we're going to have to put it in someday, because we also know from my conversation with Amy Lowell that we're not looking at sewer in the next 20 years in that site, maybe longer. So what we do is we build the project and get some rents, we start putting some money aside, which we do anyway, reserved for future replacement for roofs and siding. There's minimum requirements in these comp permits that you have to put a certain amount of, it's not a lot of money, but you have to put a certain amount of money per unit aside every year. I think it's $350 or $325 a unit per year has to be put aside as a replacement reserve in a separate account. So we could use some of that down the road, but you have to do it up front. It's very, very difficult. So we ask for the waiver.
Can you tell us, this board, how much, on average, a Title V septic system costs for this project per unit?
We haven't quoted this one out yet, but I'm going to guess it's probably around $150,000.
Per unit?
No, 150 for the whole leaching field and collection system.
So that's roughly how much per unit, though? So that's
$3,500 a unit.
pretty cheap for a septic system.
Yeah, it's a
I mean, when septic systems are generally, what, 15 to 20,000 Title V?
yeah, it's a little different when you get the site work out there and they're doing as they go, and the soils out there are terrific. So
Go ahead, Mark, you got another one? Are you all set to?
I'd like to follow up later, though.
Go ahead, Mark.
You just said that it would make it uneconomic. I'm not quite familiar with exactly the ins and outs, but the fact that you stated that, don't you have to prove it to us with figures?
I'd be happy to. You want a quote on an IA system? I mean, we've done this before. We've done this exercise before on other projects where we've asked for the waiver, and it always come back with a huge difference in price. And they're getting more expensive now because as they see that these things are going to be required, they're like a money grab now, so they're just gouging.
Well, I mean, we're not very many hundred yards away from this project. We just gouged everybody, and it's going to be a short period of time before this nitrogen flows and affects those exact embayments. And, I mean, I just go back to what I said the last time. I mean, if this property was used the way they calculate all the other property, you'd have, what, a couple of units on it? Now you're looking at 40. And I mean, it's an extreme adverse effect, and I have a problem with this waiver, that's for sure.
It's going to cost the town a lot to keep their 3%.
Yeah, and
That's the problem.
And it's going to cost the embayments.
So my quick follow-up is that you produce this, your Table 1, nitrogen loading under proposed conditions. But that's all it does. It did not follow through with the rest of the bylaw. So, yes, it does cost more for you to put IA systems in versus Title V, but you're asking us to waive it. We don't know, as a board, we aren't septic contractors, we have no clue what it costs. I do. I know what it's going to cost. But I don't think the board, when it goes to vote on a waiver, would understand, at least I don't want to speak for the rest of the board, would understand why we should waive it if you've not complied with the rest of the bylaw in telling us how does this nitrogen report affect the property and what you're going to do to mitigate it, or what you should do to mitigate it, and then state why it would be inappropriate for us to do that. Now, you said it's going to be too much money to do it. And so maybe it's that we require you to do it at some point down the road. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm just trying to get information for the record, that's all. So, would you be willing to finish out the rest of the requirements in 7.2? Or are you just going to let it lie flat?
The rest of the requirements mean get you,
7.2 requires you to do certain things if you read through it. All right, and it goes all the way to 13.1D on paragraph 4. And you have not complied with that. You've not shown this board why. You've stated that it's just going to cost too much money. Okay, we don't know that. We just stated it. I mean, $3,500 a unit? No. I don't think I've seen that price since 1988. Anyway, I don't want to be funny, but you've not proven anything to this board as to why we should waive that. That's all I'm asking. Why should we waive that? Just because you asked for it? No, I don't think we should. Nitrogen is too big a problem in this town right now. And this town is under mandate by the state to do certain things, and we've bought some time so that all of us in these overlay districts that are going to be forced into IA systems soon can do it effectively, efficiently. There's potentially maybe some money from the state that might come along to support the people who can't afford to do it. And I don't want to see this applicant skirt by and just get to add the nitrogen just because it's a 40B. I don't care just because it's a 40B. I want affordable housing. But I'd like to know what the plan's going to be and why we should waive it. And it's not because it's 40B and not because it's too expensive. At least give the board information in which to make a decision. So I'm asking you if you would kindly comply with 7.2 so this board can make a decision. Provide the cost for that septic system since you brought it up that it's too expensive. That's all I'm asking. I'll leave it at that. I mean, it's on the record. I'll leave it at that. And it's up to the rest of the board.
Yep. Nick, you all set down there?
Yes, right now.
You want?
I'll get off nitrogen for a second, Mr. Mayor. And I asked you at a previous hearing, and represented the landscape plan, we've heard testimony from one of the owners on Sophie Lane regarding the encroachment onto the property. Do you have any follow-up regarding the status of litigation against the property owner?
no,
Are you currently the title owner, or are you still just operating under a purchase and sale agreement?
no, Dan McClone owns the property in the LLC.
Has he been served with a lawsuit yet?
Yes,
Okay. And I believe that, just to make sure it's clear, you indicated that if the abutter is successful in their suit in either Superior or Land Court, it would most likely result in one of the Building 5 being removed. Is that correct?
that's correct.
What if they get a little bit more than you're expecting? You're going to have to take up Building 4 as well?
I don't think so.
Okay. Madam Chairman, through you, I don't know if there's anybody else on the board that's concerned about this. We don't know what we don't know. How much land could possibly be taken, and that could be a significant. Losing 4 units, 2 buildings possibly that's a big what if. So I have some significant concerns given that there's pending litigation. It's one of the preliminary questions on the application to the state. Is this parcel under subject of liens, encumbrances, or litigation? So while the applicant may not have known it at the time that they submitted the application, it's a substantial red flag for me. Thank you for your candor and update.
On top of others, I might add.
Sure. Anything, have anything else, Mark, before we go to the public?
No, I think Tony covered it, but I mean, I don't see 7.23B, and then I'm going back to the garages too. I just, you know,
Oh, go ahead.
Just a couple of points I would like to follow up on. Is there going to be a crosswalk across Brick Hill Road to the
Yes.
south side?
Yes.
That's going to go in, okay.
It's shown on the plan.
At some point, I believe with respect to that retention pond, there was supposed to be some information brought to us that there was a 2-foot separation between the bottom of the pond and groundwater. Has that been done?
It has.
And did you submit something about that? Okay, thank you. I considered it. And just for myself, what will be the mix of affordable units by bedrooms?
I think we put that in the application, but it was, I have it here.
And also, it's probably in the application, but I'd like to get it out here. Sometimes something in the application isn't really revealed in public. So I'd like the mix of the affordable units by bedrooms and also by percentage of the AMI,
I'm sorry, by the percentage of what?
income, percentage of AMI.
The AMI.
Oh, they're all at 80% AMI.
All at 80%.
Although we have applied to Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund for additional affordable units, some 80, some 100.
Okay.
And they've accepted our letter of intent, and we're in the application stage now. So I'm doing this from memory, but I think it was six studios, 3 two-bedroom, and 1 3-bedroom units were the affordables.
Do we have a plan that shows that?
Can you say that again?
I believe it was 6 studios, 3 two-bedroom, and 1 3-bedroom unit. We have not identified the units yet, but we will have to for final approval in the regulatory agreement.
Okay, that's coming back. I think that's right.
14, 17. And what's the total number of bedrooms
6,
in the whole project?
12.
62.
Pardon me?
62.
34. So, okay, so that's actually slightly over.
Just one follow-up question. You've been talking a lot with other members of the board about the nitrogen there, but is it your position that the Coastal Pond Overlay District does not apply to you, but you're asking for a waiver of it for general purposes? Is that your...
No, I'm implying that it's a state bylaw, and that we're not subject to it. You have a local bylaw that we're subject to that we are asking for a waiver from. And it's up to you to decide whether that's something you want to give or not. And then you've made your decision, and we have to decide what we're going to do.
Okay.
And that's,
Board.
I have a couple questions for Matt, if I can. Do you have the November sheet, the November write-up that you did?
Yes.
Number 8. I don't know if you guys all have this. I don't see that being addressed yet.
Which date are you on?
The November 11th, Beals and Thomas.
I'm sure I just want to read the caption of this video.
Oh, do you want me to read it?
Oh, so regarding the septic system?
Yeah.
Like being like, so,
Would
I don't know.
Would you explain?
oh, yeah, so for the record, Matt
Thank
Cody,
you.
Beals and Thomas, we're peer review engineer on behalf of the board for this project. There has been some precedent set for, so typically, it's not ideal for the septic systems to be under pavement, but it's often allowed. And there is precedent on some of these other projects, and I guess Noreen could correct me, that the Board of Health agent has said that's okay, given it's got the proper design parameters, whether it's like H20 loading, et cetera. So assuming that, so when it goes to the Board of Health, they'll have to show that they're doing those things for the agent to approve it.
Okay.
But otherwise, it's, again, like not ideal, but not necessarily prohibited.
Okay.
The moisture conditions, if you will, in this area, which are fairly evident, would actually make that more or less of an issue. Is that the case? Because there's so much water flowing through that thing, would it? Oh,
Meaning, I guess, so I mean, it's all.
well, I mean, you don't want an
it's-
impervious area over a septic system, but there's so much, and I'm just like.
Right, I mean, whether it's, I guess, under pavement or below pavement, the system's it's not gonna affect how the system performs, assuming it's in the proper, it's backfilled and comprised of the right materials. It's, if anything, it's gonna see less water being below the pavement. Like, you're not gonna get the infiltration of rain and
Yeah,
things.
rain above.
It almost like protect it
Yeah.
in a sense, but I mean, the water's all getting in the ground eventually.
And there's water, plenty of water in the ground around it, was my point. But
Anybody have any questions for Matt while he's up? No? I just wanted that one addressed. I appreciate
And
it.
I guess for the record, I mean, just for some of the other things, that test pit was done.
Okay.
It got down, so they still didn't hit groundwater, technically. It's hard to see models and the different evidence you'd see in sandy soils. They did get down to an elevation of about 14 feet, which is 5 feet below the lowest point of their system, which is adequate. Per the regulations, they need to show that, as I mentioned, they need to show that 2 feet below, they're not hitting groundwater. They're 5 feet below and not hitting groundwater.
When was that done?
A couple weeks ago, I believe, correct? Granted, we're coming off a drought.
Very, very dry,
Correct.
so that
Yes.
could have a profound effect.
Being, I mean, with the requirement being 2 feet and they're 5 feet, having it's pretty significant. I mean, they're pretty below it, I would imagine. But to your point, but to the point, they have not actually found it and established it. But they got down 5 feet below it and called it good, and we're comfortable with that.
Did you want Mr. Cody to address the abutters' concern where they were at a low point and there was going to be drainage directed toward their
Yeah.
garage?
That's a great idea, yeah.
Okay, so to that end, so to that point, again, per the regulations, the stormwater system has been designed in accordance with all those requirements. We understand, obviously, there's a concern with, concentrating a 4-acre parcel and concentrating it in one area, collecting it and putting it all in one area. I mean, so they've demonstrated, again, per the regulations, that they're doing what they need to do. If the board's not comfortable with that, I mean, there are different avenues to one, they still haven't determined where the actual groundwater is. We could have that, you can, make that a requirement, whether it's a monitoring well or something that's actually going to get some data on where the water actually is under those systems. But to the point that, what they require, you could have them do a mounding analysis of because, again, they're capturing the water per the regulations, the rate and the volume. They're mitigating those things, what's physically coming off the site. But that doesn't really give you a good sense of what's happening with the groundwater table itself. Typically, when you get, when you're within 4 feet of that groundwater elevation, that's when you'd start to request mounding analysis and different things. Again, they've demonstrated they're 5 feet. So it's not really something they need to provide, per the regulations, but certainly something the board could request if there was still a concern or an uncomfortability with, that assumption. Again, and to the point, I mean, whether it's us designing a system, them designing a system, I mean, this is all a bit theoretical. I mean, until you actually get out there and dig it and put it in, it's hard to know what's going to happen. But per the guidelines and the assumptions they're allowed to make, per the regulations, what they're proposing seems reasonable.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So let's say that the board did require them to model this, to determine, and we found out, yes, there's a concern. But yet earlier on, everybody said, well, it's not in the regulations. They're doing everything they're supposed to do per the regulations. So how would we then compel them, if we found an issue through modeling, why would we put them through that process if we couldn't do much about it? I mean, I would love for the neighbors to understand. I would love to know what's going on. But I want to understand how we correct it. If there's a problem, how would we correct it? How could this board compel that to be corrected? How could the town compel it to be corrected? Never mind the board.
I guess you mean after the fact?
After the fact, yeah.
Well, after the fact it's unfortunate that
Yeah.
it happens all the time. I mean, we see it all the time.
Now,
On our project and other projects, I mean, things, they're designed per the regulations, but they don't all function as they were intended, unfortunately.
now, would a monitoring well be a prudent sentinel to some impending problem? I mean, before it floods out the...
Oh, no, I know. I mean, that would just get you where the groundwater table is, better understanding of that data. I don't know, it wouldn't necessarily tell you. I mean, I guess you could see, I mean, it's obviously, it's going to fluctuate.
Yeah.
But so if it comes up a little bit, I wouldn't think, like doom is impending, but it's data, it's data points.
Question to the zoning administrator about this issue through you, Madam Chairman, if it's all right.
Go for it.
Noreen, have we conditioned in the past on projects like this, especially with apartment rentals, that the applicant must maintain the drainage system or improve it if need be?
Absolutely.
I think that would, to at least satisfy some of the concerns of abutters, that the system will be maintained or modified if need be. So they're not going to end up having to initiate litigation if there's flooding.
Yeah, I think, I shouldn't speak for them, but I think their concern was that while the water's being managed from the property, is that then going to recharge and wind up in their septic system or into their yard by the way the groundwater just moves? And I don't know if that's something that they can address or.
Right, I mean, that's a fairly complicated analysis that's not required by like the regulations, unfortunately.
So it's not,
It's something, they could volunteer to do it, you could request them to do it, but like, they're not like required to demonstrate.
it's not, in your opinion, not out of the realm of possibility that the gears are entirely correct.
No, it's a concern. But it's hard to quantify. A concern, yes, like a definite issue, it's hard to know. I mean, the volume, like I said, the volume of water getting on their property, at the rate of what, it's going to be much less. But you're putting it in the ground, and then what happens to the water table is kind of that unknown. So I mean, potentially part of the issues now is whatever is coming off. So the system initially, and maybe for smaller events, could help, keep some of the water on the property.
Say that again? I'm sorry, would you?
Initially, I mean, so an existing condition, now whatever, I think it's kind of a hill. I mean, whatever's coming down off the hill towards their property is no longer going to be doing that. So initially, there might be some benefit as well. And like, it's gonna be, it's half of one, 6 to 1, half a dozen, it's like there's benefits, but then again, that water's getting in the groundwater, and then maybe the groundwater table rises. We did know, I mean, they're the lowest property on the street. So I think they're getting stormwater, I mean, the just Brick Hill in general doesn't have curbs. So just water from the neighborhood in general is getting to them. They have those couple catch basins out in front of their house. It's kind of unclear what those are or where they go. If those aren't functioning properly, that could be contributing to the issue. There's lots of factors that go into this other than just, a new stormwater basin next door.
So,
That's why I say it's a much more like complicated analysis than just saying like, is it or is it not gonna like be an issue? There's lots of, you can get into like, having them put like a liner between, like at the property line is a potential issue, like to force the water, at least force the water down instead of it like kind of, it's going to go down, but then kind of work its way out. You could force like way down and then before it goes out. I mean, there's different things that could be looked at, but again, per the regulations, they're doing what they need to do.
how deep would a liner have to go in order to have like 8 or 10 feet? Would that be sufficient to have a positive effect on that?
I guess you'd want it to be, off the top of my head, if they're, I think, I don't have in front of, I think they're, the backyard, they're saying is roughly elevation 23-ish. You'd probably want it a couple feet below that. So on our side, so on their side, I think they're, top of the basin's like 28, 29. So you're, something like 8, 10 feet is probably sufficient. Would make a difference, at least it's forcing it down and not letting it like.
Yeah, and then it'll go out like.
It's going to go down. It's going to go down and out instead of just starting getting, a couple inches down and starting to go out.
And I know I can't hold you to this. That would be pretty much the length of that property line?
Yeah, I guess we're on that planting plan, maybe like in that corner.
And that would benefit the growth of their trees as well. It would maintain the water there, so the roots would actually provide more of a benefit. I mean, I know I can't hold you to this, you might not even know, but what kind of a cost would that represent? $40,000?
Oh, no, I wouldn't even think it's that.
Can you name the system that would be used?
No, I mean, not necessarily. It's just any kind of line, just anything that's impermeable. That would, basically just, in simple terms, just a pool liner.
Yeah.
Basically just making, just something that would not let the water go laterally, it would force it down.
Just a trench with a
Right.
liner in it.
I mean, as far as the cost, I guess I'd have to look closer. I mean, again, because, obviously, I think they're trying to mimic existing grades. So now you're having them excavate, like, at the property line to get this down and get it in, and you build it back up. So, I mean, there obviously is cost associated
Well,
with
they're
it.
planting there anyway, so that would.
But on top, I mean, they would have to dig
Mitigate.
down. I mean, we're talking about digging down 10 feet just to get a liner in and then bring it all back
digging
up.
down 3 or something, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, I have a fistful of concerns here.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, like, to the point, I mean, and there's obviously, you can do more test pits, you can do all kinds of things. It's, again, we've coming off the drought. If their yard's at, roughly 23, they got down to 14 and didn't hit any groundwater. So it's hard to say what's really happening out there. I mean,
And that would be depending on what.
Right, again.
Substrate could change and we're not even aware of what it is.
Right.
Clay. for instance.
It's one hole. It doesn't characterize a 4-acre site.
The thing is, I mean, Mr. Gary's business, he's familiar with these things, and I'm sure he's seen what he's worried about happen numerous times in numerous places. And I mean, I'm not an engineer all the way to go to an engineering school. And, sometimes you dig an extra foot and you find something completely.
And I guess, and that's our concern, or not necessarily a concern, but like, they didn't actually find the groundwater table.
That's what happened to our sewer plant.
I mean,
On another couple of feet, they would have found out that it was all ledge and clay.
Yeah, I mean, they got down, to demonstrate their 2 feet and their 4 feet, but they didn't, actually determine it.
I have a question. The applicant is requesting like a contractor's garage. Do we need to have anything to reinforce the bottom of that, for like fuel or salts or any, since it's in coastal overlay? Is there anything we need to,
I wouldn't.
it could be hazardous material in
I
there?
wouldn't
or
think so, not, I mean, it
Gas
doesn't.
traps, anything like that?
No, I mean, because it doesn't sound like it would be anything more than I mean, granted, multiple pieces of equipment, but nothing more than like a
He
typical.
said for other projects in town are all going to go there. I'm just worried about the groundwater and like if there's spill of oil or,
Well, with any, I mean, obviously, any
but this is
spills, I mean,
big
they're going to have a SWIP, a stormwater pollution prevention plan, and within that, all those kinds of like, spill prevention and different things would be part of that. That's part of
nothing
this.
extra for this.
I wouldn't think so,
Okay.
other than like just the managing of the SWIP.
This might go beyond what we hire you for, but I'm sure you've been on plenty of 40B projects. Isn't this kind of unusual for the owner to
Store his own equipment.
store equipment for other places in a project that's, these allowances are intended for affordable units, not to make their business more affordable. I just, I'm bothered.
Yeah, big time.
I mean, look at the size of this thing.
Yeah.
You can only put 2 doors on it and try to make it, it's 60 feet long.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I mean, that's not a couple of pieces of equipment and, some smoke alarms and some screens. I mean, it appears that there's some substantial plans for this, and I'm
That's why I
uncomfortable.
asked.
I would say it's
Yeah.
typically like an auxiliary building like that is for like some kind of parking use,
Right.
not.
That's why I'm wondering if we're not going to store all the salt for all the projects in this one area. We don't know.
Who can say that that's not going to be the case? Anybody on this board?
No.
There's also 7 parking spots based on the calculations for zoning that are included that are now not going to be.
7 parking spaces, yeah,
That's a very good point as
Yeah.
well, Counselor.
yeah. Anybody else have any further questions up here, or for Matt, or
Well, I have questions of the applicant.
applicant?
Yeah, later.
Anybody have any further questions for Matt? Thank you, sir.
But I'm glad
Thanks.
he's here.
Go ahead, Tony.
Just a quick question, and I know you don't want to keep talking about nitrogen and IA systems, and neither do I, frankly. Wouldn't it be better to try and work out something with this board now, rather than to have us compel you to do something that you really don't want to do now, for whatever the reasons may be? Spend all that time trying to get that fixed from your side of it. Wouldn't it be better to come up with a plan now to deal with IA now? You're going to eventually put them in. You don't know when you're going to put them in. I don't believe you've complied for the waiver. I'm hopefully going to convince the rest of the board that you haven't. But wouldn't it be a good idea to at least consider doing something with IA systems now, rather than when you are forced to do it and having to borrow more money? Because you don't know what's going to happen. You may not have time to put aside $350 a unit for the next 400 years to have that money. This is the time to work it out, not when we write a condition that compels you to do something and you don't like it, and then you waste time trying to eliminate that, and which it is. For a developer, that's a waste of time. That time is money. And this board can compel you to do something. Well, you may not like it. So this is the time to work something out. And what I see is that you're not ready to do that.
I don't know where you're going with this. What do you mean by work it out?
I'd like to see
Trying
that
to-
I'd like you to say, we are going to put IA systems in, all of them. We're going to put IA systems into 25% of them. We're going to put IA systems into 10 of them, or something of that nature. At least get the whole thing started, so you can at least begin to mitigate the negative effect you're going to have on the coastal pond overlay district.
I'm pretty sure it's an all or nothing thing. I don't think we can.
Not
it's
yet.
One system. No, I mean,
It's just one
I don't think
system.
we could do 10 units.
Oh, that's right, too, it's one system.
It's one system, so it's either we put in an IA system or we don't. That's,
That's the problem.
yeah.
Well, I'm not familiar with, other than a wastewater treatment plant, which I'm not suggesting you do, because that doesn't even do the, well, it does do the job if it's done well enough. But just because you have one system, that's a matter of how you've configured the site. Am I correct?
Yeah, certainly. It's the most economical way to do it.
Most economic
Yeah.
way to do it. I guess then, I still would like to see you agree to do, well, there's nothing you can do with one system. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, we know we're going to have to do something someday.
So let me ask this question then. Let me just go to that. I'm sorry, but I just can't let this go for this, right this second, because I don't think there's enough of an answer. So you've got this joint septic system right in the middle there, and everything connects to that. Am I correct? That's on
Correct.
plan.
Yes.
Sheet number 2, plan 7 of 15. And also down below, further down. There's no way of you doing something with that. And so you've put in the space for the IA system. Can you put that plan? Yeah, there is. Show us where the space for future IA systems would go. So I guess I'm going to go back to, why not just put them in? It's not that big a deal.
It cost $750,000 or more to do this.
I don't know that. I haven't seen a quote. I don't know that.
I think, we'll be happy to get your quote, but I think you do know that these things cost.
Oh, I know that, yes.
Yeah, so,
I don't know, I'm unfamiliar with my own personal experience. I'm unfamiliar with what one would do with a system of this nature. I know what it would take to do one house, and I don't know how to multiply that to something as effective as having this one large system and then adding what appear to be 4 tanks, IA tanks.
3 of them are going in anyway.
So I don't understand why you're just not going to do this. I know you're talking about cost, but no one's proven that, in other words, I don't think this board should say that you shouldn't do it because all you said is going to cost more money. But that's what IA systems do, and that's what you're going to be compelled to do at some point in time because you're never going to tie into the sewer line.
And he's the one that said they're getting more and more expensive by the minute.
And that's another good point. So I don't understand why you just don't bite the bullet and put them all in right now.
We're requesting a waiver, and please, make your decision on the waiver.
Got it.
And we've talked this,
All
I
right.
think we've talked it enough.
I appreciate that. I just wanted the board to hear this, that's all.
Go ahead, Mark.
I have a question for the engineer, our peer engineer. 7.23B, basically it says, however, the reviewing board shall not withhold approval of an application if the applicant provides measures for the reduction of the nutrient loading rate on a pounds per acre basis. This, I was wrong with my math earlier. This piece of property, the way the current zoning is, could have 4.6 units, and we'd have to round that down to 4. What's the pounds per, just roughly, per acre basis that would provide?
I'm not, I don't know. But obviously 40 is a lot more than 4.
10 times.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these things are broad in terms, I mean, they're whatever, I mean, they're reviewing all of Cape Cod, and they're using the same standards, blueprint, or whatever.
Right.
So, I don't see how we can get by 3B in 7.2, because they haven't demonstrated that that on a pounds per acre basis to a rate below which would produce critical eutrophic levels in the receiving water body, which is just down the street. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt that this project, as proposed, without a denitrification system, is going to produce 10 times the rate of what the allowances for are. I mean, if they were, I mean, they're coming for individual houses very soon, probably within the next 5 years. I mean, this is 10 times the damage, if you will. I'm a hell of a lot more uncomfortable with this project now than I was coming in the door this evening. And then there's a few other things just added on that I think are border on abusive.
I guess taking a step back, there is 40 units, but I think the discussion earlier was about 60 bedrooms.
62.
62.
Yep.
So assuming a typical 3-bedroom house, it's not 40, it's not like 40 houses. I guess what's that math?
Well, 3 times 4 is 12. 12 times 5 is 60. So it's 5 times plus.
So it's at 12 houses versus 4. So it's
Right.
it's another, so it's
But I
10
still,
times more, but it's
well,
more.
it's certainly not on a basis to a rate below which would produce, I mean, it's not below, it's 5 times higher plus.
Don't disagree. But I guess I was just clarifying, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry.
Because there's like studio units and things, I mean, it's not a typical house, but yeah.
But I mean, but you also have to consider that, especially around here, 3- and 4-bedroom houses, on average, half the bedrooms aren't used. So it brings us back to where I was in the first place, at 10 times, because you can be sure every one of these bedrooms is going to be filled, and every toilet. Sorry.
Any further questions before we go to the public? No. Everybody good? You guys ready? Come on up. Thank you. Sorry, we had a lot of questions, too.
Neil Gary, 77 Brick Hill, obviously the subject of multiple issues. I had my script ready for when I came in here tonight with the garage, which obviously I'm not object to large garages, but that one seemed to have an ulterior motive. And you're addressing the septic and the runoff, and over with the engineer who brought up that, yeah, there's a concern for bringing the water table up in that area. So basically, all the things that I had on my list to bring up, you've all more than adequately brought up, addressed, and I just wanted to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and a Merry Christmas. I missed by a week.
I already ate my turkey.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know, I just want everybody to have a happy holiday, and I appreciate the effort.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll do all speaking. Christina LeBlanc. So you brought up about the claim. So I wanted to correct Nick, what he said at the meeting, that there's only one building being affected. I'm filing for 4,400 square feet. So I don't know if you realize it is going to affect 2 buildings. And so I want to know, how is this going to affect the project going forward if 2 buildings are being affected from the property that I own? I maintained it for 27 years, so I'm stating that I own that property, and 2 buildings will be affected. And how does that, well, you kind of said, you were kind of in question, so I guess the answer was kind of, how does it go forward?
Noreen, wouldn't this become, if that did happen, if 2 buildings, a substantial change?
Right, so the way the decisions are worded is if there's a change to the development, they would have to come back before the board. So presumptively I say, because the other part too is that if the board approves this, the developer does have the right to proceed at their own risk.
At their own risk.
So that's part of the problem here too, is what they do with the issue about your property. So that's unfortunately a separate civil matter.
Yeah.
But if there is a change where, you're awarded a piece of the property, the developer would have to come back and discuss whatever changes with the board, because there would be a change in number of units or configuration or something. So we would have to look at that at some point. But I don't think we can proactively determine what that outcome's going to be.
Can I,
Go ahead.
no, to
Noreen?
Noreen and
Go ahead.
to James. And I'm not, does not the applicant have to demonstrate control of the property before an application can go forward? And I don't see that the demonstration that they have control of this property is absolute.
My feeling with, and I'm not offering a legal opinion, binding legal opinion, I'd suggest he's got control because it's registered at the Registry of Deeds, but it's subject to litigation. But again, this is we don't know what we don't know. And this is that's a big chunk of land. Affecting 2 buildings that's concerning for me.
But it's certainly, in my, I mean, I'm just a layperson, but it's not an absolute demonstration of control, which is kind of a necessary thing in real estate, amongst other,
I mean, you've done a lot more of these.
So I guess what I would tell you is, in order for an applicant to file with the zoning board, they have to have control of the property. Control means either a valid current purchase and sale, or they own it outright.
But to get approval from the state, one of the prerequisite questions is it subject to liens, encumbrances, or litigation?
Right, but I'm understanding that happened after the fact here,
that's why I made
which
the point.
couldn't have been something that they would have known in advance, so. So we don't have a lot of good answers for you, I guess, is the answer.
No, I know, I was like, my lawyer said if you needed him to come in, if there's another meeting, I'll bring him in. But, I own the property for 27 years, maintained it, and it's 4,400 square feet, which it does affect 2 units.
2 buildings or 2 units?
2 buildings. So actually, 4 units.
Yeah.
When you're going back, changing the subject about the water, where you guys were wanting to know, so it's 3327, and then it's Jennifer's property, and I don't know her house number.
The other map shows that better, and then if you could use the cursor, just,
All right, you do it for me, because I don't,
We talking about your property and the one next to
no,
you?
Jennifer's.
the one that had that was slightly larger.
Because we actually had,
The one that had the what?
It was a slightly larger, it didn't actually show Sophie Lane, but didn't you have one that was,
Yeah, I think.
had a little bit more, went beyond your property line? Yeah, there you go, or just roll that one down, I think would be sufficient.
This one here?
No, the one you were on, I think if you just, that's right there, that one.
Okay.
Now, and can you just give her the cursor so you can tell us?
where's my house?
Yours is right here.
Okay, and then that's,
Can you use the cursor and show us where that puddle is for starters?
okay. So, can't really see from here. So I'm here, that's 2033, 27K. Then Jen's property is right here, Jennifer. So right here is like this, our road was all beat up and it would flood right around this area. And we actually had to group together and have it tarred and fixed, and they rebuilt it so the water would run off down to that area that Jennifer and Troy were saying in the back of their property, there's like a puddle of pools up there. So it's on the corner, it's like right here, because if this is her property, then it's right here. There's a trough, a trough going down, and there pool's right here. So the road got fixed to put a heave in it so it drained properly and go into that puddle down at the back of the property, which will abut this project. So that, I wanted to show you guys where it really was, because nobody really,
Okay.
so that's the puddle.
I'm familiar with it before it was fixed.
Yeah, I know, it was a nightmare.
Seemed like it kept flowing down, but it flows onto the property in front.
And behind. So it flows, so it'll be our backyard. It flows into the backyards, which would be the project behind.
Well, the border of the.
The border of the
kind
project.
Slopes up.
So that's where that big
Madam Chair.
pool collects.
Go ahead, you have a question?
Everett, which duplex units are you talking about, number 5 and number 4?
Yes?
You can see the outline of
Okay.
her shed there.
So,
I just want to, on the record.
oh,
that-
there's my shed, okay, so,
I just wanted on the record that the lawsuit for, I think it's adverse possession, is affecting lots 4 and number 5.
Buildings.
Buildings, number 4 and number 5.
Yep.
okay.
Inquire what the proposed setbacks are right now, building 4 and 5, before the encroachment.
You're asking that?
Yes. That's actually Mr. Marioni.
Question again, please.
What are the proposed lot setbacks between building 4 and 5 to the lot line?
30 feet.
30 feet? Thank you.
I just want to say something that,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, ma'am.
oh, sorry. I want to, if everything is about, the economy, the cost of the project, would it be less if it was a smaller project? Instead of being 40 units,
The chair, please.
oh yeah, sorry.
Thank
Instead of 40 units, 20 units, as we all kind of like the Brick Hill place, make it a smaller so it's not, so then the cost would be less, so maybe that A1 system could get put in and it wouldn't be financially draining for the builder.
Well, we'll let the applicant address that. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want me to answer that?
Sure.
No, it wouldn't be. We still have a lot of the same fixed elements.
Lot less nitrogen for the rest of the town.
Less impact.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else? Come on.
Hi there, Christine Geary, 77 Brick Hill Road. Again, just to go off of what my husband said, thank you. I'm glad that we're not the only ones who are deeply concerned with the issues that are ahead of us. And I really appreciate that. On another note, I'm not quite sure why they're bringing in fill and dumping loads of dirt in the lot on 85 Brick Hill Road when they don't have any silt fences or anything up, but they are going in and out of there with trucks dumping dirt. So I thought when I read the documents like I read, it states that they are not to do anything until they have their property fully ready for construction with the silt socks and fences, and then it has to be approved by the board. But they're bringing in loads and loads and loads, and my concern is, again, runoff. Having that going into my yard, or, you know, just going where it's down the road again.
How
So,
recently?
today. More than one.
Well,
Several. So I just want to make you aware of that. And that's it.
did not go by today.
Did you inform the building commissioner?
No, I found out on my way home when I saw the dirt tracks coming from the lot, because there's never any action over there, no driving or anything. But there was quite a few back and forths, and I did talk to my husband, and I talked to our neighbors who abut the property, and they said the same thing, that they heard the trucks in and out of there. So,
Can you ask for an explanation?
no, I just got here.
I know, would you ask for an explanation, right?
Yes, could we have an explanation as to why things are being already brought in onto the property when it hasn't been approved, or it hasn't, you know, been set up with silt socks, silt skirts, or anything per what the requirements state for beginning of construction and approval from the town? Through the,
We have not granted them authority to do anything.
No.
So that's an enforcement
They may need a
action.
stormwater permit depending on the work.
And would that also include them just using it for, say, storage for some other project? Same thing would
Zoning
apply?
violation.
Let the applicant answer the question. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
No, it's-
Let the applicant
You want
answer
to
the
come up and
question.
address that, Mr. Maroney?
This is all news to me. I'm totally unaware of anything that happened out there today. But having said that, at this point, we're not subject to any terms of a comprehensive permit because there isn't a comprehensive permit. But I also understand the concern. We're not cutting trees, we're not clearing anything. It sounds like somebody brought some material in there to store it, and I don't think that's a violation of anything if there's not a comprehensive permit.
How do we even know it's clean?
It wouldn't have
Pardon
to
me?
be a
How do we
comprehensive
even know it's
permit, would
clean?
it?
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
How do we know if it's clean? Clean dirt. It's not funny. You don't even know it's happening.
The abutter standing behind me saying it's clean fills, that she's observing going there.
no, I was trying to help you here.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Tony.
When something like this happens on property controlled by a purchase and sale agreement, you know, unless it's in your agreement, then the current property owner, in other words, telling the property owner he can't or she can't do something, how much control do you have over the property right now, other than you have it under agreement?
No, we don't have it under agreement, we own it.
They have title.
Oh, you have title?
Yes.
And you are the, boy, I'm missing things. So you are the, that's a lot of information going on here. So you're the property owner, you don't even know what's going on. You're having material,
He's not the owner.
I know,
Representative.
you are the property owner's rep. You don't know what's going on, even though you come before this board. So your property owner, the person you represent, is doing something that they probably shouldn't be doing?
I wouldn't say that, no. I don't see why he can't do that. I'm not sure what he's doing, but I don't think he's violating any enforce any rules and
Because
regulations.
you don't know what they're doing, you don't know whether he is violating or not violating.
Erosion
but we
control's
don't know
pretty
that.
standard.
Madam Chairman, if I may, it's very concerning, and I think the board is very much concerned when we hear such, but we're not the enforcement arm. That has to go, enforcement must go through the building commissioner or inspection services, because we don't know what we don't know. And they may
Or
be.
town engineering.
Or town engineering. If there was a permit or conditions, then yes, that would be actionable. But again, it's an enforcement issue, and we're not the enforcement arm of the zoning regulations. So thank you for the info. It's concerning.
Yes.
But I would suggest that complaints for enforcement need to go to the building commissioner.
And that would be done through, could I do that over the phone or through the email, or?
Contact Ms. Stockman. She'll
Yeah,
get you all the
I would
information you need.
contact the building department.
Okay.
Now, erosion control isn't just limited to a comprehensive permit. You know, I mean, I'm working on something right now that has, I mean, it's pretty standard.
And engineering has control over dirt in the roadways, because typically, if there's construction activity, however it is, they require people to clean that up afterward. That's not the town's issue.
So
it could
even though
be-
it states in the application, that would still go through that department versus here?
Building, yeah.
Okay. Excellent. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you for all you do.
Okay,
Anybody else?
yep.
80% chance of rain tomorrow, 70% chance of rain Saturday.
In the afternoon.
So much for that stormwater management.
What's the temperature going to be?
Good evening.
41 and 35.
97 Brick Hill Road. Mr. Duffy, I'd like to address your questions about the dumpster. and
Yes,
my
go ahead, sir.
concerns. Originally, the dumpster was how do you move this picture? Can you move it up so you can show me where the dumpster used to be? Okay, used to be here.
There's an older plan that's still showing the dumpster.
That's the dumpster there.
That's the old plan.
My concern was brought up because the dumpster being here, that large dumpster truck would have to make a 4-point turn to get to pick up this dumpster.
Right.
Which would also block the road from the people going to work. Second point is the coyotes live, if you've ever walked this property, the coyotes live over here. This is their habitat, okay? If you put the dumpster here, coyotes are going to walk through this whole project to get to the dumpster. You're going to have children meeting the bus right here. That's a danger to the children if there's coyotes feeding in this dumpster. If you put the dumpster over here, the truck can come up this way and come straight in and pick it up, back up and leave, not blocking any traffic, and leave in half the time. The coyotes would be able to come in here if they're going to come in and feed in the dumpster. Or the
Coyote door on it?
Coyotes, rodents, whatever there are. All these properties that border this project have fences. Not all of them, but mine has a fence, and the coyotes aren't living in these people's yards. They're living out here, and they're living in the old drive-in across the street and all that vacant property. That was the concern of moving the dumpster.
Well, that brings up a question then. I assume there's two-way traffic going in and out, but when you have the circle, is there going to be one-way traffic around it or two-way, Mr. Marioni?
It's two-way traffic,
And how wide is that road?
24 feet, 24-foot travel road, driveway.
You're going to have two-way traffic going around the circle.
Yes.
All right.
To address the other concern, this is my property right here.
Yep.
I was ordered to put up a retention wall along my property. So that spillway that comes down from Sophie Lane is not coming into my property. It stops right there on the edge of the property. Okay, because I had to put up a retaining wall. I was ordered by the town to put up a retaining wall. So that water no longer comes into my property. And I backfilled the property along the wall.
So, the representations you made about the contours and the water aren't accurate in light of the town requiring him to put up a retention wall to stop that water.
Correct.
You would know you own the property.
That's right. So the water doesn't come anywhere near this property any longer. It doesn't come onto my property. It goes down into the watershed, I believe, right here.
Okay, so it still doesn't
It
flow
still
onto
doesn't
this
flow this way,
property.
no.
All right, so the end result's the same then.
Now, my other question to the board, or to everybody, if those two houses, 4 and 5, have to be moved, what would be the impact if they put them here where these buildings are? I would think there'd be less nitrogen issues.
There'll be less
Instead of having
units.
12, put 4 here. Reduce the amount of buildings, but you're still going to use the same amount of square feet. Just a question.
No.
We can't answer. We can't answer that.
Okay. Would that be possible?
Come on up, sure.
We don't think we're going to lose those two buildings. We think that we will prevail on that we have title to that property, and we contest the lawsuit. We'll see where it plays out. But we don't think we're going to lose those buildings.
None of us know. Anybody else?
No.
Any other questions from up here?
Yeah, what,
Go ahead, Ron.
those two buildings, that's 4 units. That represents 10%. And by all the other guidelines we go by, that would be a substantial change in this.
Yeah, it would.
So would that, in effect, negate the whole, potentially, could it negate this whole project? Another unanswerable question, huh?
Yeah, we can't say. It's, just speculative at this point in time.
Curiouser and curiouser.
Anybody else have any further questions?
May I ask the engineer something?
Sure.
Did your company design the septic system?
Yes, we did.
So, obviously, I'm not letting this go easily, and I apologize, but I keep thinking of something on this whole thing. In order to comply with IA system, you'd have to install those 4 tanks.
So the three tanks that are here, the settling tanks and the pump chamber to pressure dose the leaching field. This area to the, I guess that would be to the
Yeah, what's
west of
that?
the tanks, is an area that's currently like a grassed area,
Yeah.
so that we could put in a future IA tank or 2, whatever might be needed.
So that's the future IA.
Yes, correct.
All right, and the other 3 tanks are what?
It's the settling tanks,
Oh, yes.
and then the pump chamber to pressure dose the
So-
leaching field.
So let me ask you this question.
There's no way you can meet this.
What, I still don't, so the cost of an IA system, put that in, is not tens of thousands of dollars. How big is that tank? Is it a 1,500 gallon? How big is that tank?
I've spoken with various IA providers, and you're looking at $330,000 to $350,000 just for the tanks needed, and then probably another $150,000, maybe $200,000 to install, get it all installed.
Let me make sure I understand. So that one tank to the north of the 3, that's the IA? basically
Yes,
IA.
yes.
The reserve area for that. So how big is that with that tank? Does that represent one tank, or is there basically a series of tanks that would go in?
It more than likely, it's probably going to be 2 tanks in this grass area. That's why we left this grass area here. They'd be like 7,000, 8,000 gallon tanks.
Oh, that's what we're looking for.
So, and it's the components that are kind of inside them that are what I'll call proprietary. So they have the design rights to them. Nobody else can design them. They can set the fee. And the prices I've requested are $330 to $350 just for the components.
May I ask you what company that is?
Sure. One is the Clean 2,
Oh, yeah.
the Nitro,
Yeah.
that this town readily approves, and it's one of the better performing systems.
Yeah. No, I spoke.
I'm sure you're familiar with it.
And so your thoughts on that, the prices you're getting is, again, how much money roughly?
$330 to $350 just for the components. I'm in the wrong
Never mind the
field.
install.
Never mind the install.
And then the install, that's going to be, that's the least side of the cost. So you're talking $500,000?
It's probably at least a $500,000 add-on.
$500,000 project to do that.
Correct, yeah.
Is there any way of partially mitigating the nitrogen? Do something now, do something later?
The way the system's designed now is one combined shared system.
One combined system.
So it's not possible to say
So it's either all or none?
nothing, correct.
All right, thank you, I appreciate that.
Go ahead, Mark.
And I'm going to go back, maybe I should have asked you, but I'm still stuck on 7.23B. And you have to demonstrate to us, well, first off, what's the performance level of these? Like 19 or?
It's 11 milligrams.
11 or 12?
It's 11 milligrams per liter. A wastewater
Even-
treatment plant is 10 milligrams per liter.
Well,
So
ours is
it's
3.
Well, most groundwater discharge permits a 10.
Ours is, anyway.
Well,
ours
you're a
is-
town's millions of gallons. Something like this, if it was around 10,000 gallons a day, it would be
Well,
10
I'm still
milligrams per liter.
stuck on this, you demonstrating that on a pounds per acre basis, to a rate below which won't produce critical eutrophic levels in the receiving water body, and I don't see there's any way in the world that you can do that. I'm even questioning whether you can do it with the D-Night system.
I'm not a wastewater engineer to do those calculations, so unfortunately, I can't get you that.
Well, they task us with
No,
with
I understand where you're coming from.
And that's why there's some discomfort with this board, especially in light of, the recent sewering just around the corner, and this is going to bend the curve back in the opposite direction. There seems to be absolutely no doubt about that. And I'm not comfortable with that waiver.
Tim, I have a minor question. Are you going to submit the specs for signage in the building permit process?
I'll let Nick answer that.
It's going to be further down?
Goes further down the road, yeah.
Anybody else have anything further up here?
Can I ask one more question?
Go ahead, Frank.
I want to follow up on the question I asked you maybe half an hour ago. I wasn't quite sure how you answered it, but you have applied for a waiver of the Coastal Pond Overlay District. And the reason you gave me was it's too expensive. Are you conceding that the Coastal Pond Overlay District applies to you if we do not waiver it?
Maybe not.
Let's see what he says.
No, I'm not conceding that. No, I'm not. That's the answer. I'm not conceding that. I'm saying if you deny the waiver, we have to decide what we're going to do.
Right.
And it may be we have to put in an IA system. Or it may be we can't make those numbers work and we file an appeal. We don't know yet. We need you to make your decision so we can make ours.
Okay.
All right, everybody up here. Noreen, do you have anything further? I don't know what anybody wants to do up here. We have new information tonight, quite a bit.
We did, a lot of it had to do with the dumping of material on the site, which Mr. Morse has pointed out is an enforcement issue and beyond the scope of our authority. So it's nice information to have, but nothing we can do anything about.
Correct.
Doesn't,
Still enforcement.
Right.
but doesn't an enforcement issue not weigh at all?
We don't know anything. We don't know whether the enforcement issue is a valid, it's up to the building commissioner to decide if it's a valid enforcement issue, not us.
Okay, maybe I phrased this wrong then. I mean, if in fact it was a valid issue, then would it have some weight on this? I mean, you're supposed to have a clean rear view mirror before you come to us, aren't you?
I think then we put a condition in, if we grant the permit, that he has to comply with the enforcement order. So,
Do you want to weigh in on that? No?
I mean, in terms of previous violations, when zoning is considering making special permits or their decision-making, it's generally not supposed to consider previous enforcement actions.
But this is ongoing, or potentially ongoing.
Potentially ongoing, yeah. I'm not, until the zoning enforcement officer or building commissioner says this is illegal, it's a violation of topsoil conditions or something, we don't have a violation to consider or anything detrimental to consider. I would be hesitant or concerned to ding the applicant at this point based on the representations tonight, absent a finding from the enforcement officer, but even still, it's very concerning, but.
I mean, this.
Go ahead, Nick.
May I also add, now that I'm aware of this, I will bring it to the owner's attention tomorrow that we cease and desist doing that. Stop all that activity. I don't know what he's doing. He might be storing it for another job, but I'll make sure that he knows that we're not happy about that here, and we stop doing it.
Certainly adds to my list of prevailing concerns,
Now, Nick,
if
you can
will.
see there's a lot of concern up here. A lot.
I do. I think this one might be overblown, I think.
No, but I mean,
But-
like, we just got the landscape plan this afternoon. There's just a lot of concern in general. I mean, everyone has a little different, there's just a lot of concern. I don't know if you want to clean up things or if you want to give us time. I'm not sure if you're comfortable closing. I don't think I'm comfortable closing, but I'm not sure if you are.
Well, you know what? I want to try and do this as clean as we can. I'd like to clean up some of the issues. I'd also like to get a summary of what those issues are I'm cleaning up, and I'd also like to get a feel of all the board on the waivers. I think I know where one of them is going.
Yeah.
But I'd like to at least review the others and get a summary of what these items are, and I would be comfortable giving an extension in time for you to review it and get comfortable with the issues.
I just feel we have, I mean, you even have concerns. We have concerns, all around. Do you want to go over waivers?
I don't have
I
them.
don't know if that's appropriate.
I don't
I
have
don't think that's appropriate.
I don't think it is
No.
either. No,
Well, as I understand it, you want time to review the landscape plan.
definitely,
There's concerns about the garages.
definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's concerns about the location of the dumpster. I would like the board's position on that, because the other one is going to tell us where to put it. I'll put it where you want it. It doesn't matter to us. And I'd like to know how you feel on the waivers. I'm not sure about the drainage thing, how you feel about that. We're willing to put a liner on the side of the detention basin.
Okay.
So, we could show that on another plan.
Groundwater yet is a concern too,
Yeah. Yeah,
Other issues in the Beals and Thomas that are outstanding that the engineer wants more time, our peer engineer, no, okay.
You don't have anything outstanding, right? Just the groundwater, pretty
Yeah,
much.
the draft, again, they're 5 feet below where they, when two's required, so
A 10-foot liner would, well,
Well,
maybe.
it's unlikely that
They
it's
just
that
did-
much, but.
Admitted to putting a liner on the
Yeah.
on the retention basin where it goes by the Geary property, and I put that in my notes as something that's going to
Yeah,
happen.
and also there'll be an operation and maintenance plan for the maintenance of that detention pond to keep it from silting up with leaves and silt, and we have to maintain it so it performs as it's designed to perform.
So that, well, maybe you should come up to that. This is just a small thing on my list of concerns, but whatever, I spitballed a 10-foot liner. That's going to give us roughly 5 feet of safety, whatever, as far as the Gearys are concerned.
Well, no, I guess you'd want to, yeah, you'd want to be a couple feet below their property, which we don't, I mean, again, the survey and things.
22 and 29?
It was like 20, I mean, there was some talk about 23.
23?
So you'd probably want to be a couple feet below that.
And what depth would the liner have to be?
A couple feet, but like, again, to force the water down, so the water.
Yeah,
would-
I understand how it
force the
works, and I
so
know how
the water would have
water
to go
works.
down, and then,
Yeah.
I mean, potentially it's going to come back up and around.
Yeah.
But
But
at least you're
water,
forcing it to.
but it's not going to fight gravity any, so,
I mean, but water's going to seek its level.
All right, well,
I mean, you're going
can
to
you
force it
throw a
down,
number on
and
the-
then it's
on
going
the
to seek
depth?
its level otherwise, you know?
can you throw a number on the depth of this liner?
Yeah, so something a couple feet below the Geary's property. If it's, I mean, they're saying it's 23, so you want to get down to like 21, 20, something like that.
Can you,
But the,
But I guess
But
we
the
don't have an
retention
understanding
pond in that land is-
where their property is. Because again, the survey,
can you show it on the plan where this?
yeah, they're in a swale though, so you need more than
yeah, and I
a
guess,
couple of feet
see,
because
maybe like the contours stop. So we, like, you know, we're talking about this property here, right? I mean, what's the elevation? We're not sure.
well, what's the elevation of the property line?
It's 27. It's
So
like,
you
it's
got
this last one.
So you got 5 feet there already that you need to cover, plus 2, so 10 foot's pretty accurate.
Yeah,
Or would be
off the top, yeah.
acceptable.
Something in that ballpark. Again, whatever gets you a couple feet below their property.
So where would it go?
So where would it go?
Yeah, where would it
The
go?
liner would, it'd be, something in this corner. If the concern is this property being the low spot, you're basically putting a barrier that would prevent the water from coming this way horizontally. Eventually, it's going to go down, and then it's going to seek its level, but at least
So it has to
initially, you're
extend
forcing it
beyond
down.
the parameters of the retention pond on the,
On the
south
on
and the east side.
on this east side.
yeah, and some partially on the south side as well, because it's going to migrate, right?
You'd probably want to wrap around
Yeah,
the
you got to
corner.
wrap around that corner, absolutely.
But again, I mean, you can't, I mean,
Yeah.
being reasonable, I think that's helps mitigate some of that concern.
And their septic is right in that
Assuming-
back corner, unfortunately for them, so.
Isn't it, I think, isn't the garage in the back corner?
There's a garage there.
So the septic is on the other side.
Yeah.
And I guess the point, I mean, I guess, and not to, something else to consider is, this system's here, but if this gets to a certain level, the actual infiltration system is out in the road on the other side of the street. This is more just catches like that initial flush.
Yeah.
And there are drains here that are going to funnel it away from the Geary's property and put it in the ground over here.
But
So if
in
you had a
extreme
barrier
storms,
here,
it's gonna- yeah.
it would have to, it's going in the ground over here. I mean, smaller events, it's going to go in the ground here because it's not going to build up high enough. But for larger events, it's going here, and then it would have to fight its way all the way back to be impactful. But again, if that barrier is there,
It's not an issue anymore.
it's just, it's, again, once it gets down, the water table is going to seek its level.
If the board were to condition that, it would need to have some level of technical term for it other than just impermeable barrier. Is there one?
I don't believe so. I mean, I think that's,
We would just need the layout.
So we could just condition
That's
it
what it is.
with, put a pool liner in.
an impermeable barrier.
I mean, I'm trying to look.
A little bit
It's
different
an-
term.
Yeah.
It's an impermeable barrier.
Yeah. I mean, they would have, they're the engineer of record. They would need to get it, they would need to, so what are they going to do? It's just a suggestion from us. We're not the design, whatever that ends up being.
we're fine with that, and I can just show it's a 40 mil poly liner. If somebody's looking for a term, it's similar to what they use on septic systems.
Yeah,
It's
like
basically like
permeable
a
reactive.
fill liner, a pool liner. It prevents water from going through and
yeah.
forces it down. So we'll do kind of what Mr. Cody was saying and run it along, this lot line here, and then up that lot line there.
How many linear feet are you talking about?
I can't give you that answer right now, but kind of what I just,
It'd
I
have
know
to
you're
be-
looking for it.
I think it's probably less than 100.
I was going to say, it's probably less than 100.
It would have to extend beyond the parameters of the retention pond at its maximum.
So probably somewhere from this area here where the high point of the pond is, down the lot line, and then up this lot line. So you're probably looking at around 100 linear feet, plus or minus. And we'll make sure we get it to the proper depth, so it's a few feet below, down to maybe elevation.
And then the plantings are going to actually contribute to that because they're going to be on the other side and the roots will grow like
Correct.
crazy down through there. The earth's been,
Madam Chairman, does the board, or do we want to ask, we've asked the applicant about the IA system, and this issue is, I think, very much linked to the coastal pond overlay district waiver. We've asked the cost, we've had some testimony about what the cost is, we've had representations from the applicant that it would make the project uneconomic. Do we want to ask for the financials?
it's been stated so many times, I believe we are, I think it's,
I want to get it on the record just to make
I
sure.
think it's incumbent on us
Then
to,
ask what timeline they need to get those to us,
Yes.
especially if they're willing to give a
because
extension.
Yeah.
just with a, I mean, and I mean, I'm always asking to poll anybody, but I think you can, read me. Short of that, I'm extremely uncomfortable. I think it pushes the envelope much too far, and I think it overburdens this property and the watershed beyond anything that we should even consider, but that's just, I'm one vote.
I think that's a good idea.
That's to the record.
Yeah. Can we do that,
Get financials? Sure.
please?
Well, how many would you like?
Huh?
Two bids enough? Two
Yeah.
bids on two different systems, one on each type
I
of
think that's-
system?
Don't you?
I'm sorry, just so you know, it doesn't end at installing that system. There's ongoing annual,
Maintenance.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty big
Lots of it.
expenses.
Yeah.
So,
Noreen, what are we looking at?
February 6th? Is that too soon?
oh, that's not too soon, no. No, that's,
You're funny like Bob Hope.
Look at us laugh.
well, again, did we finish identifying the issues? It's
Yeah,
it's
that's good.
Yeah, let's-
the drainage, the garages, the dumpster location, and I'd like to have some sort of a consensus from the board.
When you say drainage, Nick, you're talking about what we
Talking about
just
that
talked?
line that we just
The
talked
line.
about.
You're not talking about the Sophie Lane issue?
No, no, no. no.
Okay.
I'm talking about the liner at the
All right,
detention
okay,
pond.
fine.
Yeah.
It would be nice.
Financials on the cost of the.
Yep.
Well, we
Can you think of
stick with the Sophie Lane thing. I mean, the contours that you showed us obviously have no
Yeah.
bearing in light of what the gentleman told us about him requiring, them requiring. So I'd kind of be curious if you could give us a little bit more detail that actually includes Sophie Lane and where the hell this water is going.
Oh, we don't have a project on Sophie Lane, so we're not studying.
I am talking about the water that's, it's according to testimony, the water is running lateral on your property line. If that's not true, show us.
I'm not sure that was what the testimony was that I heard, but
I think it's what I heard.
going lateral and Sophie Lane on our property?
I mean, that's what the gentleman indicated,
Which gentleman?
the man in the back who had to put up the retaining walls.
Talking about the stuff that's running onto the property next to him, not that's running on our property. Am I right?
But his testimony,
Wait, you have to come up if you're going to speak,
yeah,
please.
maybe if you came back up.
Thank you.
And you put that map back up where
I will.
it was.
Tony, do you have any other homework for Nick? I think we covered it all.
I think we covered it all.
Yeah. Nick, you good?
Okay,
Talking about, this is your property.
yeah.
And that's,
The culvert that goes right down.
Can you give him the cursor and let him take over?
yeah, I was just trying to
I don't know
work.
how, though.
Can you,
Me.
look at the arrow there, can you, on the screen now?
Right here on the street.
No, on the screen, okay, on the street. Where did they require you to put the retaining wall?
Goes from this corner of my property all the way down.
Okay, now that wall that you put there, now that makes the water running from Sophie Lane.
That makes the
Go.
water running from Sophie Lane. There's a.
Can you show us with the cursor where the water runs now that the wall is there?
Water runs down the street and it goes into this culvert. It comes down here and it puddles up down the bottom. And if you get a real heavy 100-year rainstorm, it comes down and then runs along the wall here.
Okay, it doesn't run up the street, it runs,
That's good.
I cannot attest to what happens here and in Christina's property. But what she stated is it goes this way.
and it's been a long time since I drove on
To this property.
Sophie Lane, but it seemed to me that I saw active water running in the direction of this property. But I could be wrong, and I'm still not.
When it rains, there is a culvert here and there is active water coming down this way. But it doesn't cross my property any longer after the town ordered me to put in the retaining wall.
But none of it,
My retaining wall also has that impermeable
Yeah.
barrier on
yeah,
the
underneath.
inside. So
Yeah,
no
understandable.
water from my property sheds.
Yeah. So none of this, to your experience, none of this sheds north, I guess it would be, along the property line and along the other neighbors?
I can't attest to that.
That's the kind of information I'm looking for, Nick, if you could
Maybe
provide it.
Christina can-
I'm going to drive out there myself, and I can
Christina can come back.
ascertain. I guess I have to.
Go to the drainage plan, Tim, which is explained what's been taken out of the
Schedule a site visit, we have
That's a very good idea.
Yeah.
So this is the existing conditions plan. These contours here were from the town topo.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, we can't go on someone else's property survey.
No, but I mean,
Yeah, and I understand what he's saying
the
now.
retention wall with the,
Yes, and-
with the barrier underneath it
And he's
changes
saying
the whole
it's-
dynamic.
He's
And
saying
I
it
want to
comes
know
down
what
and it
that
shifts to the
is.
south. Okay, these three properties up here, because I believe when I was here last time, someone brought up the comment that it drained onto our property. So we requested plans from the Board of Health. Okay, I can supply those plans to you. They show topography, and basically, from the middle of their backyard, it drains down to the street, and from the middle of their backyard, it drains to our property. So we're picking up from the middle of the backyard to our property in the watershed. Okay, I can supply you with a town GIS plan that basically shows the contours on Sophie Lane, it shows the drainage structures, if that helps as well.
Christine.
You want, Christine, you want to?
So I guess,
Can you, which direction is the Handy's property?
so where's your wall? Because you had the point. Where's that retaining wall? And I'll show you, because there's a pool.
The retaining wall,
Is-
according to the owner of 97.
Okay, so right there where you had the, okay, so right here, so this is retaining wall, so right here, because this is the culvert that goes down here, and there's Debbie's house is here. Now, this puddle's right here. There's like a little pool, and this is the back of Jennifer's yard. Where it goes, I have no clue, but now that there's this retaining wall is here, it's probably headed in this direction, which is, this is the project area. But there is a puddle in this area when there's a heavy rainstorm. Jennifer brought it up at the very beginning that she was concerned about kids because it's like a little pool. But now that that retaining wall is there, that pool is going to get a little bit bigger. So it's only going to drain towards this direction, which is the project area.
You know Handy's house?
Handy,
I think it's further down.
Handy. Well, it's Troy, Kate, me, and then there's a guy.
It's number 27.
Where's
Oh, yeah,
27?
that's Kate and, oh, okay,
Hey,
that's
Kate and
Dandy-
Dana.
Dana, yes,
Where's their property, right?
right next door to me.
Well, right, okay,
So we're the high end.
okay.
The one that's the problem is
Just south
Jennifer.
of them is where
That's-
the problem exists.
Exactly, between
And
Debbie.
it's
here.
and of course, there's a culvert there or whatever,
Right here.
that the water does flow in the direction of this property. That's my
It
experience.
does, it flows down, it pools right here, and now it pools more because of the retaining wall. So all this water that,
Well, that's-
Jennifer should be here to tell you, because it's her backyard, and that's what she was concerned about, kids drowning. And then the water will eventually go into here, so it's this project area. So, I mean, but this is where it is. This is the puddle, this is the pool,
Any
infamous pool.
15 minutes on site might be a well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. That's, yeah. Jim has suggested we do a site visit.
Or even if we individually, we can go, I mean, I'm certainly,
With everybody see the same thing and know what we're
Yeah,
talking
I think it's
about.
good if we all go, yeah, and post it like a regular, yeah.
I would agree to that.
yeah.
So are you all set with your homework?
I think so.
Okay.
I just one more recap. The liner down at the detention basin, the garages, the dumpster location, which I'm asking for a poll on that, as well as the waivers. You want some time to digest and review the landscape plan, and I'm going to get financials on the 2 different types of IA
I
systems.
think that's what I have.
Is there anything else?
Scheduling a site visit.
I'm sorry?
Scheduling a site visit through Maureen.
And I might suggest that,
You can, it's staked, you can go out there anytime you want.
now we have
We'd
to go
like to go
together.
as a group.
Yeah.
And
You want to go with us there?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And you can do what you want, but I might suggest that you go on to fctv.org and review this meeting so you can, because we've had a lot of comments.
It's
online, I mean,
It's a
you
practice
can-
at some point to review them all. I do review all the meetings, we save them, so.
Well, tonight was a
There was a
considerable,
lot of
Concerns.
information, yes.
No, I learned a lot. It's, yeah,
Yeah.
I think we all do.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, can I have a motion?
We're going to site visit, we're going to have a motion to continue, and also I'd ask that we consider having a date when everything is filed before the next meeting, so we don't get stuff at the last
At the
minute.
last minute, yeah. We do have a 1 week.
I agree, sorry.
so that would be the
Thank
2nd if we're here the 9th, or what was it, 9th of February, did you say?
6th?
6th?
I have pictures of what they're talking about. I got pictures this morning.
Oh, no? You mean the soil?
Of the culvert they're all talking about.
You could send them to the office and we'd,
Yeah, just, you can drop them off, and we could, I mean, it's dry out there now, so.
These are just the highlight looking at before you come out.
Yeah, that would be very helpful to us when you see those pictures.
I'm familiar with that location,
Yeah.
because I've been to Handy's house and and the patch in the road is evident.
With me?
Yes.
So we're going to schedule a site visit.
I have this for you to sign, too. Please.
Where's it continued to?
February 6th?
You're going to need to fill in the date then,
I'll fill it in. Hold on.
So you got to have your stuff in the 30th.
February 6th.
2025. Oh,
Stop.
oh, that hurts.
All right.
Does that make us older?
It does.
A little bit.
Damn it. Nineteen. I had to think, too. Thank you. And you'll set up a site visit.
I'll second Frank's motion
You made a motion to continue to
Yeah.
February 6th?
Yeah.
and to set up a site visit.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? You're on this, Tony?
I'm sorry?
You're on this. You're voting. Get excited. All those in favor of continuing to February 6th? Aye. Nay? No? Abstain? None. All right. Thank you for all the information from everybody tonight. Thank you for coming too, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Madam Chairman, I would just make a motion that we offer.
Happy New Year, everybody. Happy holidays. Thank you.
For me to find my thing again, as usual. Merry Christmas. Happy Thanksgiving.
And a happy new year.
And I've lost the thing again, as usual. I do it like, at least I'm consistent.
13 pages.
Now look at your weird drawings now.
Doodles.
All right. Do we have any minutes?
Just from tonight?
I don't recall. I think we're currently up to date.
Okay, zoning update. She's done so much, we all know. 3, board discussion.
Discussed all out.
Yeah.
We get a few weeks off.
Motion to adjourn.
The longest in a very long time. You'll get back to us all on the dates.
Yeah, we can circulate some dates and find a date time that works for both.
Might be good if we wait till Scott comes home even. I mean, no, he can't vote, but he might want to participate. I don't know. Board updates? And future agenda items?
How about adjourning as an agenda
Mark
item?
has called it.
Got that meeting, just a reminder, joint meeting with the select board.
Oh, yes, joint meeting with the select board.
Need an agenda.
Yep, and our next meeting is January 9th at 6 PM. Now, Mark,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all those in
ho.
favor? Aye.